Hey, what's up, my friends? So welcome back to this week's market analysis. For those of you who are new, to what I do, right? Basically, I'm a trend follower. I trade primarily the trends. So usually, I mean, every week on these weekly market analysis videos that you're watching right now, what I do is I identify, trend trading opportunities in the market, typically on the daily charts and on the 4-hour charts. So these are usually my entry time frame. I look for trading opportunities on this time frame, and I share it with you guys. So I mean, for those of you who finds that trend trading, hey Rainer, yes, it makes sense. Feel free, to ask me any questions, alright, or feel free, to continue watching these videos because this is what I do primarily. And there will be point, in time where traders who feel that trend trading is not for them, then that is fine as well. But if you are a trader who wants to trade with the trend, then I would say this week's, or I would say my weekly market analysis videos would be useful for you. So this week, alright, I look to cover a few trading setups, alright, the Aussie dollar, we look to cover the crude oil, we look to talk about the dollar yen, which I got stopped out of, and as well as, talk a little bit about those reversal candlestick patterns, because I think these patterns actually do warrant some attention. So just to share with you on how I actually trade them using the trend. So all this and more in this week's market analysis. I'll see you there. Okay, so this is the weekly chart of Aussie dollar. So I think if you recall, last week we talked about Aussie dollar. I said there was a head and shoulders pattern coming up, right? Then we see this if there is any follow through towards the downside. So looking at the weekly chart of Aussie dollar, you see that we have lower highs here, over here, over here, over here, over here, and it's pretty much clear that the trend is towards the downside. So if you're a trend trader or trend follower, you want to be looking for shorting opportunities only because you want to trade with the trend. So how we can go about doing this is looking at the daily chart. This was the head and shoulders pattern I was talking about. And this is the neckline. This is the left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder. So just to run you briefly, right? Typically, a head and shoulders pattern is usually a reversal pattern where you anticipate a reversal in the market. For example, you have an uptrend. Then you have a head and shoulders pattern, then price broke this neckline, trade slower, and you anticipate lower prices in the coming days or weeks. So in this scenario, it's actually the opposite, right? Because what you have is a trend that is in your favor, a trend in your favor, a downtrend. Then you get a head and shoulders pattern. And to me, this head and shoulders pattern is actually more of a continuation pattern rather than a reversal. So in this scenario, to me, when I see head and shoulders pattern aligned with the trend, I would look at it as a continuation pattern. So over here, you can see price broke below this neckline over here. It broke below the neckline. And then we have this consolidation over here. So how will I look to trade the Aussie dollar? So here's my take on it, right? This is not a trading recommendation. It's not a trading signal. It's just to share with you my thoughts on how I look to trade the Aussie dollar. So we have the trend with us. We see that price has broke out of the head and shoulders pattern. And what I notice is that we have this potential bearish flag over here. So what happened is that in the coming days or weeks, if price does trade lower, I will look to trade this bearish flag pattern towards the downside. And as usual, I always use a 2 ATR for my stop loss. So that's my plan for the Aussie dollar and something to share with you. Now let's talk about the dollar yen, shall we? So the dollar yen, for those of you who have been following me for quite a few weeks now, you know that I was long the dollar yen. I've been long for quite some time. I went long, right? Basically because I see this resistance over here. I have these higher highs coming into resistance. So what I did was I had a buy stop order above this swing high over here. I got triggered on this candle. Price went in my favor for a few days. And after which it's had a slide down and finally stopped me out on this trade on this candle. I got stopped out this week. So now that I got stopped out of this trade, I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. I'm not going to, feel hurt or pain or anything, because trading, you will have wins, you have losses, right? What matters is you have controlled your risk, and the outcome of the trade is basically random, right? I can't control the outcome of this dollar yen trade. It's not within my control. The only thing that I can control is my risk. So now that I got stopped out of the dollar yen trade, the next question I ask myself is this: Rainer, is the trend still up? Ask myself, is the trend still up? Because I went long because of an uptrend. So looking at the daily chart, or when I look at the weekly chart, I look at this and yeah, the trend is still up. It's still very much towards the upside. You notice the 20 and 50 period moving average over here acting as dynamic support. I see higher highs and higher lows on this chart, and it's very clear the trend is actually still towards the upside. So now that my bias is still towards the upside on a daily chart, I want to look for a trading setup to get on board this trend. But unfortunately, according to my own trading plan, I do not have a trading setup at the moment that allows me to hop on board this trend. Alright, I don't have a trading setup, at least not on the daily or the 4-hour chart. But if you go down to drill down to the 15 minutes chart, then yes, I can find something that I can trade. But that is outside the context of my weekly analysis, alright, because trading off the 15 minutes chart and sharing with you guys is basically, I would say, not much of a meaning, because by the time you see the charts, by the time you look at it, the move may already be over. So I'll rather keep my trading towards the daily and the 4-hour chart, so it makes meaning for you, and you can still, I would say, take part in these trading ideas that I'm sharing with you. So with that set aside, right, like I've said, daily and 4-hour, on the dollar yen, I don't have anything for me to trigger my trade, so I'll leave it as that for now. I know the trend is still towards the upside, and I'll keep a lookout to see if there's any trading setup for me in the coming weeks. So up next, how about let's talk about Pound Canadian. Let's talk about Aussie New Zealand first. So earlier I mentioned that, candlestick patterns like the pin bar and engulfing patterns, they can be used from a trend trading perspective because it shows you rejection of prices. A bearish pin bar, basically, this is a bearish pin bar, and it basically shows, oh gosh, my drawing is so bad. This is a bearish pin bar. It basically shows you rejection of higher prices. And likewise, a bearish engulfing looks something like this, where the next candle engulfed the previous candle. The bearish engulfing basically looks something like this. And they basically show you rejection of higher prices. So how can you use this in context with the trend? So looking at this chart, this is the Aussie New Zealand monthly chart. You can see clearly the trend is towards the downside. It's quite obvious based on this move over here. So now that looking at a monthly chart, the trend is towards the downside. I'll go down to the weekly chart and I notice this. I have this resistance over here, right? This resistance. Right, previous support, then price broke down lower, then previous support now turned resistance over here. And at this juncture, we saw this rejection of higher prices. We see a bearish pin bar because we have a rejection of higher prices. Well, it's not really a bearish pin bar because it closed higher, but it shows you rejection of higher prices. So now you have a clue by the market that it has rejected higher prices. So this is a signal for you. I would say for those of you who trade candlestick pattern, this is something for you to look out for. You can actually trade it and look to trade aboard the trend, because you saw on the weekly chart, the trend is still towards the downside. So if you trade it, your stop loss will go above this candle high over here. And how you manage your trade is basically, I would say, 101 ways you can go about it. Right? You can look to take some profits over here, some over here. Then the rest you hold on in anticipation that this swing low will get taken out. So there's many ways you can go about it. Or likewise, some traders would rather take all their profits at a key level. So trade management is something that I will leave it to you, because my way of handling trades and your way, chances are, is very different, right? Because due to our different personality and risk tolerance. So that is something you would have to find out for yourself. So up next, let me share with you another trade, but it's a counter trend trade. So you don't see me talking much about counter trend trades, but they can be used in your own trading arsenal as well. But for counter trend trades, you will need to bear in mind two things, which I will share with you shortly. So this is the chart of Pound Canadian. Looking at which on the daily chart, you see the trend is up. You have higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. Then price took out this swing high recently as well. So on the Pound Canadian, we can all conclude that on daily, the path of least resistance is towards the upside. So now let's look at a 4-hour chart. And we see this. Notice that we have this swing high over here. Then we have rejection of higher prices as well. We have a bearish pin bar. But the thing is, recall earlier on the daily chart, we noticed that the trend is up. So what it presents to us or to you right now is actually a counter trend trading opportunity. I mean, for those of you who don't want to trade counter trend, that is fine, right? There is nothing wrong with it. But for some of you who believe that counter trend can be a viable way to extract additional profits from the market, this is what you would have to consider. First thing first, Because of the fact that you are doing counter trend trading, number one is you have to reduce your risk. So if you are typically risking 1% a trade, it makes sense to, instead of your 1%, risk half of it, or perhaps 0.5%, or even 0.3%, right? Half or 1/3 of your usual risk. Number two, because of the fact that you are a counter trend trader, I would wish for you, or I would advise you to have a conservative profit target, right? Conservative take profit target. So for this scenario, if you're looking at a pound Canadian, I would say a conservative approach is to look to take profits just below this support over here, right? Just take it just before price comes into support, all right? So somewhere around here, you can look to, take your profits. So of course, that's not to say that, the support will hold, or, who knows, price may, break the support and trade lower, and that could be the reversal of this entire trend. But the scenario is, I would say, unlikely. It's not 100% that it will not happen, but it is unlikely, right? I choose to believe that the trend is your friend, the trend is intact, and for me, I feel that a more likely scenario is that price come down lower into this support area, then there will be buyers coming in and push price higher, taking out this swing high over here. This is what I believe, because I'm a trend trader. So for those of you who takes counter trend trade, it will be advisable to take your profits just before this support area over here. So, alright, it's been almost 10 minutes right now. So I think that's all I have for you boys and girls in this week's market analysis. I hope you all find it useful, because if you do, right, feel free to leave me any comments below if you have any questions, any doubts, or anything that you want me to clarify. I'll be glad to help. So with that, I wish you all good luck and good trading. I'll talk to you soon.